Al-Ghazali Chair of Epistemology and Civilizational Studies and Renewal at the International Institute of Islamic Thought and Civilization, or ISTAC, International Islamic University Malaysia, IIUM. Yang berbahagia Datuk Dr. Afifi Al-Akiti, Fellow of Islamic Studies at Oxford University dan Orang Besar 8 Perak. Yang berusaha Tuan Muhammad Faisal Abdul Aziz, the President of Muslim Youth Movement Malaysia, or ABIM, speakers and panelists, Tan Sri, Puan Sri, Datuk Sri, Datin Sri, Datuk, Datin, honorable guests, ladies and gentlemen. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a very, very blessed day to everyone. I, Kamarul Barim bin Harun, will be ushering you through at least the first half of the day of the first ever Noor Conference. The Noor Conference 2021, the Quest for the Future, will have a lot of arrays of deliberations where I would like to welcome you to join and give feedback too. So the greetings to Noor Conference 2021 is very, very apt, and the good governance and the quest for the future must be the thought and discourse for all of us. But before all this, ladies and gentlemen, let's begin our session with the proud singing of our national anthem, Negaraku. Thank you for your very spirited singing wherever you are, in the safety and comfort of the location that you are in, your house, your office, or wherever it is. And thank you so much for making it to the first ever Noor Conference 2021, where good governance and the quest for the future will be our central focus today. Ladies and gentlemen, to ensure that this bright morning grows into a very fruitful noon and afternoon, I would like now to bless our event, to invite Brother Adli Zakwan Zairakit Naini to lead the prayers. Brother Zakwan.
Auzubillahi minasyaitanir rajim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin wal aqibati lil muttaqin wassalatu wassalamu ala sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Ya Allah, Ya Rahman, Ya Rahim. Indeed, we raise our hand to express our gratitude for your will and qudrat, which has determined and allowed us to gather on this auspicious morning in the event of Noor Conference 2021. Ya Allah, Ya Munzil al-Rahmah, wa Ya Fatih al-Barakah. Bless and simplify our journey after this. Make the agenda of strengthening our ethos and outreach strategy a reality, and then create a superior and successful future for us. Ya Allah, Ya Zal Jalali wal Ikram, grant us lasting health, perfect well-being, a sane mind, an active mind, halal sustenance, descendant and generation of believers, and grant us all goodness in this world and in hereafter. Unite our hearts, Ya Allah, our Lord. We hope that the agenda of developing a nation with high knowledge and intellect can be realized in the present and the future. By doing so, it will result in success and provide benefit for a better future of the world. Allahumma ja'al jama'ana haza jam'an marhuma wa tarfaqna min ba'dihi tafarruqan ma'suma. Rabbana atina fid dunya hasanatan wa fil akhirati hasanah wa qina azaban nar wa adkhilna al jannata ma'al abrar ya aziz ya rabbal alamin. Sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wasallam. Walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Qaballahu minna wa minkum.
Amin, amin. Amin, amin, ya Rabbil Alamin. Okay, I will continue now. Thank you so much, Brother Adli Zakwan, himself a very well-known speaker and moderator. Dear ladies and gentlemen, esteemed panelists and speakers, I would like to draw your attention that the Noor Conference, the first ever, has very noble objective to foster discourse, to lead to a better ummah, not only here in Malaysia and the region, but globally. And isn't it the Holy Quran that describes that good governance as the laws of justice, a just and principled order, and compliance of rights and responsibilities in society? Following this advice and lead, Khalifah Umar, for example, admonished that there is no khilafah without consultation. And not only consult, and isn't the best of consultation and discourse, is a meeting of mind in a knowledge platform like the Noor Conference 2021. So we have a lot of speakers lined up, a lot of panelists, a lot of keynote addresses and points. But before that, I would like to congratulate and with that welcome the organizers and their representative to give you their welcoming remarks. But I must say, I've moderated many events. I am very, very proud to be here today, because the array of young people, well, younger than me, and the spirit and passion that they have to ensure that we have a better world, not only now, but for the future. So let's listen to these great people behind this great conference. And I'm very honored to first of all welcome Yang Berbahagia Tuan Fazril Saleh, a very remarkable young leader of the nation. He's the Secretary General of ABIM. The floor is yours, Tuan Fazril.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a very good day. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin, wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya wal mursalin, Sayyidina Maulana Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. Yang berbahagia, Emeritus Professor Dr. Osman Bakar, holder of Al-Ghazali Chair of Epistemology and Civilizational Studies and Renewal at the International Institute of Islamic Thought and Civilization, International Islamic University Malaysia, ISTAC-IIUM. Yang berbahagia, Dr. Afifi Al-Akiti, Fellow of Islamic Studies, Oxford University and Orang Besar 8 Perak, Malaysia. Yang berusaha Tuan Muhammad Faisal Abdul Aziz, President of Muslim Youth Movement Malaysia, Angkatan Malaysia Malaysia ABIM. The speakers and panelists, Tan Sri, Puan Sri, Datuk, Datin, honorable guests, ladies and gentlemen. Greetings. I am Fazil Saleh, the Secretary General of Muslim Youth Movement of Malaysia ABIM, cum coordinator for Noor Malaysia. First of all, let us express our gratitude and thank all for joining us in our conference today. We are sure that your appearance will make the event more remarkable. On behalf of the organizing committee, we welcome the attendance of invitees, conference participants, and attendees to the online event, Noor Conference 2021, Good Governance Quest for the Future. Honorable guests,
The conference is organized by Muslim Youth Movement of Malaysia, ABIM, and Noor Malaysia, with the support from strategic partners Inter Alia, National Union of Malaysian Muslim Students, PKPIM, International Institute of Islamic Thought, East and Southeast Asia Office, IIIT, International Institute of Advanced Islamic Studies, IAIS Malaysia, Kidmir Foundation, Malaysian Youth Council, MBM, Rasuah Buster Sinar Harian, Yayasan Anti Rasuah Malaysia, YARM, Yayasan BC Peradaban, Projek Bangsa Malaysia, Malaysian Reform Initiative, US Embassy Kuala Lumpur, Bait Al-Amanah, Engage.my, Institut Kepimpinan Bintara, Parlimen Beli Malaysia, and waptv Malaysia. To our strategy partners and supporters, let us thank you for your outstanding support. Respectable guests, after this, there will be other remark from my colleague, Brother Amirul Osman, the coordinator for Noor Malaysia. Then, Emeritus Professor Datuk Osman Bakar, holder of Al-Ghazali Chair of Epistemology and Civilizational Studies and Renewal at ISTAC-IIUM, will deliver his keynote entitled Good Governance, A New Horizon in the Complex Universal World. For your information, Emeritus Professor Dr. Osman is one of the leading Muslim intellectuals in the world. For us, Muslim youth, especially in ABIM, he has becoming one of our role models. And we are very proud that the fact is, he is our senior, the alumnus of ABIM, who provides us with idealism and ways to sustain our cause. Thanks, Prof, for your time and thoughts. Ladies and gentlemen, at 11 a.m., after the keynote address by Emeritus Professor Datuk Dr. Osman Bakar, the parallel session 1 begins. There are 2 sessions discussing 2 components, economics and geopolitics, and all attendees will be assigned into 2 breakout rooms based on your choice during registration. However, you are free to enter another room. The session will take about 1.5 hours. The economics component in that parallel session will be moderated by Dr. Idlan Rabiha, Senior Lecturer in Accounting from the Department of Accounting, University of Birmingham, United Kingdom, and featuring 2 experts, Emeritus Professor Dr. Bajoya Bardai, Academia and Economist, and Mr. Abdullah Han Guangyu from China, co-founder Kidmir Foundation. They will be discussing the topic Value-Based Economy, a circular effort to revitalize global economic endeavours. Meanwhile, during the same period, another component, that is geopolitics, will be commenced, moderated by Mrs. Altaf Debiati, co-founder and director of Iman Research. The theme, creating balance in the alignment of order post-COVID-19, will be discussed by the panelists, Yang Amat Mulia Tunku Zain Al-Abidin Ibni Tuanku Mukhris, founding president and chairman of IDEAS, Associate Professor Dr. Muhammad Azam Adil, Deputy CEO of the International Institute of Advanced Islamic Studies, IAIS Malaysia, and Associate Professor Syed Muhammad Khairuddin Al-Junaid, a historian and academia at the Department of Lee Studies, National University of Singapore. This parallel session with that 2 components will end at 12:30 p.m. and our conference will taking break for about 1.5 hours. You as the attendees, you may stay or leave the Zoom platform. However, please enter again using the same link at 2 p.m. Honorable guests and friends, at 2 p.m. after the break, we will begin our parallel session 2. There are 2 sessions discussing another 2 components, education and also technology. As mentioned aforesaid, all the attendees will be assigned into 2 breakout rooms based on your choice during registration, yet you are free to enter another room. The session will take about 1.5 hours. And for information, the technology component will be discussing a topic, science and innovation, The Pursuit of Societal Excellence, moderated by Mr. Effendi Zulkifli, CEO, Blockworks Sdn Bhd and Council Member, Kidmir Foundation, with 4 experts as the panelists: Insinyur Muhaimin Iqbal from Indonesia, Chairman New Energy Asia; Dr. Gamal Albin Said, also from Indonesia, CEO Indonesia Medica; Dr. Mazlan Abbas, expert from Malaysia, CEO and co-founder of Favoriot; and Mr. Muhammad Johan, President and founder of Myra. Meanwhile, another session will be discussing education component with the topic Education Challenges for Pandemial Generation, Nourishment of Good Values and Integrity, chaired by Tuan Nur Izzati Mak Yusof, the CEO of Darul Naim Institute and Director of Luka Mai. This session featuring Dr. Hartini Zainuddin, philanthropist and co-founder of Yayasan Chowki; Dr. Syafiqah Abdul Rahim, researcher at Malaysian Youth Council, Majlis Muslim Malaysia, MBM; and Associate Professor Dr. Syam Badil Shah, Deputy President of IKRA Malaysia. Ladies and gentlemen, our second panel session will end at 3:30 p.m. from 2 to 3:30 p.m. and our conference will be continued by a closing address entitled Cultivating Good Governance Between the Muslim World and the West from 3:30 to 4:30 inshallah. And we are proud to announce that the closing address will be delivered by Sheikh Dr. Afifi Al-Akiti, a fellow at Oxford Center of Islamic Studies, Oxford University, and Orang Besar 8 Negeri Perak, Darul Rizwan, Malaysia. And our conference will be ended by resolution statement read by Mr. Muhammad Faisal Aziz, President, Muslim Youth Movement of Malaysia, ABIM. Guests and friends, we hope you enjoy the conference. And with that, I thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Jazakallahu khairan for the speech just now. Thank you so much, Saudara Bazril. That's one youth leader. Let's now listen to the other. And I'm so proud that our country has a lot of steady, stable youth leadership coming through. And we have listened to the array of the outline of what the Noor Conference today is all about. What are the lineups? Who are the speakers? Great speakers, all of them. I have had the honor of interviewing some of them. Very powerful speakers and thought leaders indeed. And now let's listen to another young mind, another young leader, Saudara Amirul Azman, the coordinator of Noor Malaysia, and he can shed more light into what we're going to have today. Saudara Amirul, over to you.
Alhamdulillah, such a wonderful event. Thank you, my brother, Brother Saleh. Indeed, it has been an honor for me to work with him side by side with my brothers in ABIM, with our partners, and everyone that is involved in this wonderful conference. Indeed, it started off in a very silo-based movement. We believe from the start that Malaysia needs a push to the global agendas of the world. We believe for the young people in Malaysia that Malaysia needs more than just a dream. Malaysia needs a vision, and not just another vision that was concocted time and time again, but a proper blueprint, a proper path for us to focus on, the principles and values that we could latch on, the ideas that could spur us forward beyond the essence of what we can think. Noor Conference believes that we could be a part, not for all, but one of the pillars, which is good governance, especially for Malaysia in these very trying times. First of all, I would like to thank our VIPs, yang berbahagia, Emeritus Professor Datuk Dr. Osman Bakar, holder of Al-Ghazali Chair of Epistemology and Civilizational Studies in IIUM. Yang berbahagia Datuk Dr. Afif Al-Akiti, Fellow of Islamic Studies, Oxford University, and Orang Besar 8 Perak, Malaysia. Yang berusaha Tuan Muhammad Faisal Abdul Aziz, President of Muslim Youth Movement of Malaysia, Angkatan Belia Islam Malaysia, ABIM, the speakers and the panelists, Tan Sri, Puan Sri, Datuk, Datin, honorable guests, ladies and gentlemen. When we started this conference, we understand the need for the Muslim agenda to be pushed forward, especially during the Israel bombing and during the Eid al-Fitri. It was such a sad event for us, and we believe that we need to push it further as the Ummah. We know that this is hard. We know that it's hard for us to actually do talks and deliberations with certain people that are, let's just say they don't like us as much. But we do believe by the right way and via the right channel, we could advocate for peace and harmony. And Malaysia could be and can play an important role to broker peace within the Muslim communities and the non-Muslim communities, not just in Malaysia, but the global world at large. Noor Conference started off with 4 main principles, which is the governance institute that we believe in Malaysia. We understand that policy makes a huge chunk of what runs here, what runs things here in Malaysia. And what we think so is, Islam needs to be think as an institution. It's a way of life, true, but all the technicalities are in there. It's not just principles, ideas, and values. The book of God, from the book of God itself, explains everything that we need to do and what we should do. And the teachings of the Prophet ﷺ is what we need to believe in. There are many institutes, I do believe and I do recommend that they be highlighted more. And we do not want to challenge or be a part of anything that they are championing, because we do believe that they are doing a very, very good job. While what we are proposing here is another side of things. We want to show the technicalities and the thought process of a Muslim. How do we run a country? What are the indices that could show this is a Muslim country? This is a idealized country that the Quran wants us to push forward. And this is the place that we want to build this place. In Malaysia, Malaysia has been a forefront for championing for all human rights issues in regards to the Muslim community. And we believe by this push forward, not just Malaysia, the Ummah could benefit. We need to understand the Muslim economy is $1.3 trillion. It's a huge economy. We are the second largest community in the world. We constitute the majority, if not the biggest community in the world. We have the capacity to grow. We have the capacity to collaborate. We have the capacity to learn and explore the opportunities in the future. My fellow friends, my fellow brothers and sisters, Malaysians and non-Malaysians at large, I want to say that whatever that you hear here, take it and learn from it. At the end of the day, to run a country, to run a nation, to run a government, an institution, it's not just a person. It needs to take, each and every one of you plays an important role, from the smallest part to the biggest part. We need to be as one, united, stronger, together, not based on colors of our skins, our ideologies, etc. We need to focus on the main important thing, peace and harmony. And again, Islam promotes that. We need to understand that over and over again. And if we can do that, and we could put it in our hearts, inshallah, my brothers and sisters, there will be a bright future for us. It may take us 100 years, God knows. But what is important is we try. Even Nuh alayhi salam took a lot of years, Musa alayhi salam took a lot of years. What if 100 years is, it can be done. So what I can say here is, it's not the end goal, but it's the process that we need to take one step at a time to promote this agenda forward. I pray that the Muslim Ummah, the community, Malaysia, the Nusantara region, and the global world at large come to a fusion where we could truly build a peace and harmonious world, inshallah. I thank everyone. I hope you enjoy your time here. Please do support us. like our page, like our Instagram page, Facebook page, our social media page, our website. Keep tabs on us. Join us if you want to collaborate with us. Contact us. We're there. We're happy to talk to you and to partner with you guys, inshallah. Thank you so much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Terima kasih, everyone.
Thank you. Deepest of appreciation for the speech delivered. We thank both Fazril and Amirul for first outlining the context and the flow of the Noor Conference 2021, the first ever. And then, of course, the very passionate outlay of what's the thought and what's the passion behind all this discussion today. And it's always great to see young leaders of Malaysia at youth level embracing diversity. I must say, when I started out as a journalist, organizations like ABIM is put more into a box, and that's the box that they are in. But decades later, with young leaders that you have heard just now, I've even met non-Muslims, non-Malay Malaysians who quote-unquote swear by the movement of ABIM, by the movement of Noor Malaysia, by the discourse like Noor Conference. So we have come to that juncture, must have been due, and we thank that, appreciate that to God and to the people before us, that they have laid the foundation, and has been alluded to in the opening remarks just now, that the seniors play a very crucial role. The forefathers has given us the path to lead to where we are today. The seniors has put meat onto the structures that has been built. And now, let's get the wisdom of before. Let's make sense of the chaotic challenges of now, and let's unravel the sweet promise of the future. Attendees who are always in the cradle of God's mercy and love, the ceremony now continues with a keynote speech by Emeritus Professor Datuk Dr. Osman Bakar. Please give me a few minutes to allude to the greatness of Datuk Dr. Osman Bakar. As a journalist, TV anchor, and editor, I've had the honor of crossing paths many times with Datuk Dr. Osman Bakar. He has a doctorate in Islamic philosophy from Temple University, Philadelphia, United States of America. Currently, he's the holder of Al-Ghazali Chair of Epistemology and Civilizational Studies and Renewal at the International Institute of Islamic Thought and Civilization, or ISTAC, at the International Islamic University Malaysia, IIUM. He is also Professor Emeritus in Philosophy of Science at University of Malaya. He was formerly Distinguished Professor and Director of Sultan Omar Ali Saifuddin Center for Islamic Studies, University of Brunei Darussalam. Professor Osman was also formerly Malaysia Chair of Islam in Southeast Asia at the Prince Talal Al-Walid Center for Muslim Christian Understanding at Georgetown University in Washington, D.C. And he was also Deputy Vice Chancellor of Academic and Research at University of Malaya. Dr. Osman has authored and been editor of more than 40 books and more than 300 articles on various aspects of Islamic thoughts and civilization, particularly Islamic science and philosophy, in which undoubtedly he is a leading authority. His most well-known books are Classification of Knowledge in Islam in 1992 and Tawhid and Science, also in the same year. His latest books are titled Al-Farabi, Life, Works and Significance, that was produced in 2018, second edition, and Colonialism in the Malay Archipelago, Civilizational Encounters, as co-editor in 2020. He has been named among the 500 most influential Muslims in the world since 2009. He was made Datuk in 1994 by His Royal Highness Sultan Fahang, and Datuk by the Majesty the King of Malaysia in 2000. So you have to stay tuned for this. sit back, relax, get your drinks, mute that phone, put it aside, and without further ado, to kick off Noor Conference 2021 and this undoubtedly enlightening weekend, I would like to present to you Emeritus Professor Datuk Dr. Osman Bakar for his keynote address. Over to you. An appearance in a few more minutes, possibly closer towards 10 o'clock. And I think the organizers, the creative, innovative young people that they are, they're going to have some materials that we can look and deliberate upon. Before that, I understand there will be a video or content that can be shared. Is it ready for the organizers? Are you ready to play the video? Let's see.
Angkatan Belia Islam Malaysia ABIM kini melangkah ke usia separuh abad penubuhannya dalam usaha meneruskan agenda membina dan memimpin tamadun khairah ummah bagi menegakkan kebenaran dan keadilan dalam menongkah arus dan cabaran globalisasi dan usaha menangani isu dan permasalahan umat. ABIM tekad mensasarkan matlamat menciptakan ABIM sebagai sebuah gerakan kemasyarakatan yang memfokus kepada unsur ilmu dan bakti, iaitu suatu pergerakan bagi membangun masyarakat sebagai ilmuwan yang mencerahkan kelompoknya sendiri dengan ilmu dan hikmah, kemudiannya berencana dan menggerakkan tindakan berstrategi ke arah membaiki masyarakatnya. Setelah semua usaha dan perancangan yang dijalankan ini, pastinya bermula dengan sokongan dan cetusan idea oleh saudara Faisal Aziz selaku Presiden Angkatan Belia Islam Malaysia serta seluruh kepimpinan Angkatan Belia Islam Malaysia yang dianggotai oleh komposisi pimpinan dan exco yang pakar dan kompeten dalam pengemudian agenda masing-masing. Sesungguhnya, hala tuju dan tindakan ABIM sentiasa berpaksikan 5 budaya ABIM dan seiring dengan visi dan misi ABIM, maka satu demi satu kejayaan pastinya akan membuahkan hasil demi mengangkat ABIM selaku gerakan ilmu dan bakti yang terbaik di Malaysia dan di dunia. separuh abad Angkatan Belia Islam Malaysia, Gerakan Ilmu dan Bakti.
Kami bertekad untuk menghasilkan graduan yang bertaraf antarabangsa yang memiliki nilai-nilai murni berdasarkan kepada falsafah pendidikan Al-Hikmah. Seperti yang kita semua maklum, di luar sana ramai siswa dan siswi yang menghadapi masalah-masalah sosial. Ini bukan disebabkan oleh mereka itu tidak berpendidikan, namun mereka mungkin kurang dari segi sentuhan rohani dan sentuhan nilai-nilai murni seperti yang dijelaskan di dalam Al-Quran surah Al-Luqman ayat 12 hingga 19. Kami berjanji kami akan berusaha sedaya upaya untuk mencapai matlamat Kolej Darul Hikmah. Oleh itu, saya menyeru semua warga Kolej Darul Hikmah untuk bersama-sama dengan saya menghasilkan para graduan siswa-siswi berhikmah.
Saya terima.
Saya terima.
Saya terima.
Kami terima.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi. Ya Allah, ambil lagi ni. Amin nak sikit hari ni. Tadi ayah dengan ibu sembang pasal rasuah. Ibu kata rasuah sama macam mencuri, menipu, macam upah cikgu bagi lulus periksa walaupun dah gagal. Amin tak fahamlah kenapa orang besar suruh kita jadi baik, rajin, jujur, tapi diorang sendiri tak buat. Ayah kata ada orang buat jahat tak kena tangkap sebab dia upah orang sampai boleh lepas. Itu ke rasuah. Amir takut, Amir tak nak tipu, tak nak mencuri, tak nak jadi jahat bila besar nanti, tak nak masuk neraka. Ya Allah, jauhkanlah Amir dari rasuah. Amin. Tak nak masuk neraka.
Perjalanan Global Peace Mission Malaysia (GPM) dalam misi kemanusiaan merentasi sempadan memasuki tahun ke-19 perubahannya pada tahun 2020. GPM yang ditubuhkan pada 26 September 2001 ekoran pengisytiharan perang oleh Amerika Syarikat serta tercetusnya peperangan di Afghanistan telah memulakan misi bantuan kemanusiaan dan perubatan di sana pada awal Oktober tahun yang sama. Semenjak itu, GPM terus mengorak langkah dalam memperjuangkan keamanan sejagat melalui bantuan kemanusiaan dan usaha advokasi berterusan dan konsisten.
Ghazali bin Nawawi dilahirkan di kampung Hutan Pasir, Tendung dan dibesarkan di kampung Slo Macang, Pasir Mas, Kelantan pada 17 April 1940. Pendidikan menengah diperoleh di Sekolah Arab Pasir Mas sebelum berpindah ke Ma'had Muhammadi Kota Baru. Pada 11 November 1964, beliau meneruskan pengajian peringkat ijazah pertama di Universiti Al-Azhar, Mesir. Beliau seterusnya menyambung diploma pendidikan di Universiti Ain Shams, Kairo pada 1967. Pada 1971, beliau menamatkan pengajian peringkat sarjana dalam bidang perbandingan agama di University of Birmingham, United Kingdom. Pada tahun 1992, beliau memperolehi ijazah kedoktoran dari Universiti Islam Antarabangsa Malaysia (UIAM). Dr. Ghazali telah berkhidmat sebagai pensyarah di Fakulti Pengajian Islam Universiti Kebangsaan Malaysia (UKM) dari 16 Disember 1971 sehingga 31 Ogos 1983 sebelum berpindah sebagai profesor di Fakulti Undang-Undang UIAM pada 1 September 1983 sehingga 31 Disember 2008. Beliau adalah Dekan Fakulti Pengajian Islam UKM pada 1972 hingga 1976 dan Dekan Fakulti Undang-Undang UIAM pada 1983 hingga 1990. Semasa di London, beliau mengasaskan Pertubuhan Malaysian Islamic Study Group of United Kingdom atau dikenali sebagai MISG UK. Pada 1972 hingga 1974, beliau dilantik sebagai Presiden pertama Angkatan Belia Islam Malaysia (ABIM). Sekarang, beliau merupakan pendakwah bebas dan aktif dalam gerakan Islam. Buku Erti Perjuangan mengandungi pesanan dakwah yang bermakna tentang susur galur konsep penciptaan, kemuliaan insan dan sejarah perjuangan para nabi dan rasul dalam memakmurkan bumi anugerah ilahi yang kaya ini. Risalah Islam yang syumul membimbing umat menghadapi cabaran hidup di dunia ini dan memberi petunjuk untuk mereka mendepani pertarungan antara hak dan batil di pentas sejarah dan kehidupan. Umat Islam bertanggungjawab membina semula tamadun ummah yang sedang lemah kini demi memastikan agama dan tamadun Islam mencapai kemenangan, seterusnya berperanan sebagai khaira ummah, umat terbaik, menjadi rahmat untuk sekalian alam, rahmatan lil alamin.
Dr. Kamal Abid Said adalah seorang inovator kesehatan dan wirausaha sosial. Di masa kuliah yang kurang mampu.
Assalamualaikum dan salam sejahtera. Baru-baru ni kita dengar berita bahawa Perintah Kawalan Pergerakan disambung lagi, PKP 3.0. Justru kalau tuan-tuan dan puan boleh lihat dari sudut ekonomi, keluarga memang sangat ramai yang terjejas. Kalau kita boleh lihat golongan B40 lah yang banyak terjejas. Bahkan golongan M40 juga ramai yang diberhentikan kerja. Terpaksa ada yang balik kampung sebab kita dapat berita ramai yang buat rayuan untuk rentas negeri akibat dia dah tak mampu dah untuk survive tinggal di bandar dan terpaksa balik ke kampung halaman lah untuk tinggal di kampung disebabkan cost of living dia tinggi, jadi dia terpaksa balik ke kampung. Dan ada beberapa kes lagi yang kita terima, ada seorang abang ni dia hanya kerja harian di sebuah kilang dan didapati dia positif COVID dan dikuarantin di Maep selama 2 minggu. Situ dia dah terputus gaji, maknanya tidak ada gaji selama 2 minggu tu. Dan bila pulang ke rumah, wang simpanan pun dah habis dan dia terpaksa mohon bantuan dengan kami lah. Ada lagi lah banyak kes yang kita terima dan panggilan yang sangat mendesak situasi pandemik kali ini. Saya mohon kepada tuan-tuan dan puan untuk menyumbang. Kami Adab Youth Garage dan juga ABIM Noor menjalankan inisiatif bantuan terputus bekalan untuk sampaikan sumbangan kepada mereka yang sangat terkesan akibat PKP ini. Jadi saya mohon untuk tuan-tuan selalulah sumbangan kepada kami untuk kami sampaikan kepada mereka.
Okay, if you can't hear me, can you hear me now? Yes. Hold on. Okay. My apologies. Allow me to reset the room, as I like to call it now, in social media space. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for your patience and for your commitment to be here in the great discourse at the first ever Noor Conference, Noor Conference 2021, the quest for good governance, quest for the future. And a lot have been said, and I would like them all the points before to be tied up to one thing, that the world is getting more complex. We are in the evolution of humankind where the technological leap has spurred the fastest progress ever in the history of mankind. And yet we are facing also greater threats, from pandemic to climate crisis to wars and famine. So without further ado, as promised, a very, very respected and esteemed keynote address speaker, I would like to present to you Emeritus Professor Datuk Dr. Osman Bakar. Prof, over to you.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya mursalin Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Yang saya muliakan saudara moderator, pihak penganjur program, dan seterusnya para hadirin sekalian. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat pagi dan salam sejahtera. First of all, let me thank the organizers of this conference, the Noor Conference organization and the Muslim Youth Movement of Malaysia, ABIM, for kindly inviting me to this very, very important, significant event, since it's going to talk about a very, very important topic, a topic that means a lot of things to all of us. Let me begin my presentation with this statement. If by governance we mean all things about governing human organizations, be it a nation, a community, a regional community, a world body like the United Nations, or even local bodies and organizations, then we can appreciate how vast the subject of governance is. And I'm using the word here, using the word human organization, in the sense used 600 years ago by Ibn Khaldun, the father of modern sociology, and also the founder of science of civilization, Ilm al-Umran, which also may be translated as science of culture. And in this vast science, certainly the vast that we have come across under the name of sociology and civilization, Ibn Khaldun talked about governance. Governance was an important topic in his book, The Muqaddimah. What is important to be noted is that his discussion of governance was in the context of the study of civilization. What this means is that governance may be described as a civilizational issue. So, inshallah, I will try in this about 30 minutes or so for me to discuss this topic. Please go to my first slide. Hello, my first slide, please. Next slide, please. Yes. Precisely because of the multi-dimensional and all-embracing nature of the issue of civilization, I have chosen to emphasize the word civilizational, ketamadunan, isu ketamadunan, civilizational issue. Now, to say that governance is a civilizational issue means that it is, first of all, a universal issue. And by universal, I mean an issue that has been confronted by all human civilizations at all times in the history of human being. And in fact, every organized community, every organized society has to deal in some way with the issue of governance. But universal also means that there is not just one experience of governance. There are many governance systems, and yes, there are common issues that are faced by all societies precisely because this is related to human qualities, human nature, and human nature has not changed over the centuries, has remained the same. At least I will talk more about the connection between the universal nature, the human quality, and the issue of governance. So that's what I mean by being a universal issue. So, and to see the multi-dimensionality of the issue of governance is enough to, of course, to look, first of all, governance is a political issue. In fact, in the past, this is the core idea of governance with which people associate. That is the political. And there's been different political systems, as made it clear by the language that we use. For example, say in Malay, Bahasa Malaysia, we associate governance with pemerintahan and with kerajaan. And in fact, that's the popular thing. In other words, it's quite clear that governance is a political issue. And of course, kerajaan also means about the system, the governance system, which is the pentadbiran. And this is important to be noted. The word pentadbiran comes from the word tadbir, and tadbir comes from the Arabic word. And finally, when you use the word tadbir, it refers back to God, who is the al-mudabbir, who is the governor, who is the ruler, the manager of his vast cosmic kingdom. In fact, it is important to note that in the Islamic perspective, of course, that there's also the dimension called the theology of governance. Now, we can also see the governance is also an economic business issue. It has that dimension. And since I'm talking here about basically the application of Islam to the issue of the governance, just to appreciate the economic nature of the issue of governance. Now, we are reminded by classical Islamic thought that the most fundamental unit of governance is household governance. What the Muslim philosophers like Al-Farabi, like Ibn Sina, they use the word tarbil al-manzil, which literally means the household governance. And that is also the name, they use for economics. So in other words, economics, the fundamental unit of economic life is governance of the household, home governance. In other words, if we take care, if good governance of our own household prevail, then the economy of the country or the society will be in better shape, inshallah. So just to point out to you all that governance is an economic issue. Of course, in the case of Ibn Khaldun, all right, we can see that the taxation system, which has to do with economics, was very, very important to his science of civilization. I'm sure you know about this. The former American President Ronald Reagan, used to speak highly of Ibn Khaldun. In fact, when I heard it live on American TV at that time, I was in the United States doing my PhD. I was watching TV, watching Reagan delivering his speech with several Malaysian friends, and we saw him quoting Ibn Khaldun approvingly. And after immediately after speech, I told to Malaysian friends, look what Ronald Reagan has done. Ronald Reagan has turned Ibn Khaldun into a Republican, and yes, a good Republican, because that's why he approved this quotation very approvingly. But the point is, but of course, since he's a good Republican, so it means that low taxation, because the context of the American debate is that between the Republicans and the Democrats, there is perennial debate on taxation system. Somehow, there is the ideas or the philosophy of taxation proposed by Ibn Khaldun appeal to the Republic. Now, it is governance is also a military issue. We know very well, of course, all the big military complexes in the United States. Also, governance has to appear. In other words, Ministry of Defense in every country has to deal with the issue of governance. And not to be left out, especially from the Islamic perspective, there is the religious dimension of governance, the ethical, moral dimension of governance. In fact, it's a very, very important dimension, because Islam refused to separate ethics and morality from governance, or for that matter, from any other human endeavor. And again, we refer to the taxation system. We have the concept of religious tax in the Sharia, which is religious. Well, religious, partly religious and also partly social. But the point is, the Islam as the last religion finds it appropriate to introduce religious tax, a very, very fundamental pillar of Muslim society. Now, this just my initial remarks, just to emphasize the civilizational nature of the issue of governance. Well, let me say a few words about the what I call the raison d'être of the human condition, meaning the rationale of human existence, the justification of human existence. I mentioned here three main points. First is a guardianship of planet Earth. In other words, it is in Islamic theology that God has appointed human beings as Khilafah, as the vicegerents on earth, or when you do it, guardianship. Of course, other religions like Christianity use the word stewardship, but the point is the same meaning is implied. In other words, God has appointed human being to protect, to be the protector of planet Earth, to administer the earth, to govern the earth. Of course, in accordance with the way guided by Allah, by God. So this is a concept of guardianship, in other words, planetary governance. Later I will say more about this planetary governance. But what I'm saying now is to emphasize that the governance of the planet Earth is a very important issue now and in future and in the near future. We are already talking about it because of the problem of the climate change, of global warming and so on. But the point is, somehow our planetary consciousness has been brought closer and closer with each other. Now, the other thing is the creation of the human civilizational order. So there's a very important raison d'être, the basis, the rationale of the of civilization, all right, or governance. Why is governance needed? Governance is needed, good governance is needed, essentially because we have to create a moral order, a civilizational order. Just as God has created a natural order, and a perfect natural order, so he's expecting human beings to create a counterpart to that natural order in the form of civilizational order. So harmony between natural and civilizational orders is the demand, in a sense, that is the goal of human existence. Next issue, next slide, please. Yes. Now, since I've been requested to talk about Islam and good governance, let me briefly give several very important points about, I would say, the principles of good governance. But before that, let me say this, all right? You know, there are 4 conditions of regarding governance that we need to take note of. We can have, first of all, we can have the situation in which the system of governance is bad, is poor, and the governors, the al-mudabbirun, are also poor. In a poor condition. So you have that. Poor system, poor human beings, poor the human governance. We have that situation. Or the second condition, we can have good system, but poor managers, poor governance. So we have that kind of situation. And the third situation is we have good governance or a good system, but good governance, but poor system. And the best, of course, the fourth condition is we have good system and good administrators, a good governance. And Islam, of course, insists on both. At least in principle, in theory, Islam insists on having good system and good managers and governance. So here, that's why I emphasize that there are many points to talk about good governance, but let me talk about select the most important ones. And from this list of points, from the Islamic perspective regarding governance, then we can see here it is a combination of system and the human quality. Both are emphasized here. First, wisdom and knowledge as basis. In other words, good governance demands knowledge and wisdom from the governors, from the administrators. Therefore, it's a question of human quality. And since Islam calls itself as the religion of knowledge, so Islam insists on the knowledge-based governance, wisdom-based governance. So, and this is something which is not static, which keeps on. It's a dynamic kind of thing that needs to be improved, progressively improved from time to time, because as the emphasized by our moderator, we are now in a world in which is it's getting more and more complex, and but also more problematic and so on. So at no other time that we need really wisdom and knowledge. And if our system of education cannot deliver the people endowed with knowledge and wisdom, then we are not going to have a good governance. Now, the second point here is power sharing and ethical exercise of power and authority. This principle applies quite generally across the board. In other words, this applies to all societies, not just to Muslim societies. But here, I'm actually, my point here, they are all universal in nature. It's all applicable to any society. Every human society needs these principles. Now, power sharing, and of course, Islam emphasized that power is a gift from is trust. Power and authority is a trust from God, and therefore human beings who have been entrusted with this power and authority should exercise this principle of sharing. And of course, the exercise of power should be based on ethics, ethical, the importance of ethics, and therefore here is a combination, or in a sense, a combination of both human quality and the goodness of the system. So, in other words, one of the requirements of the good system is the idea of sharing in societies. Most of all, the sharing of power and authority, and of course, to make sure that ethics guides our in a sense the way we govern, the way we organize things. Now, the third point, the third principle is trustworthiness. It goes back to trust, and it's important to note that when Allah in a sense talks about the appointment of human beings, of Bani Adam, or the children of Adam, the human family, as governors and as Khalifa, as Khalifa, then the word used is trust, amanah. Allah has given that trust to human beings, and we should not break that trust, the trust that God has given to us. So this applies also to governance in human society, and of course there should be mutual trust between the governors and the governed, and between the rulers and the ruled. In other words, this very, very important question of trustworthiness. The question is justice. We cannot have good governance without justice. Principle of justice needs to be observed. It is the spirit that will permeate into every part of the societal body. So I cannot speak dwell at length with each of these ideas because of time, but just to emphasize that justice is very, very important, and our well-known philosopher, Professor Said Makin Atas, defined justice as having the knowledge to put things in their proper places. That's justice in the wide sense of the word, but here we talk about justice in different domains of life: economic justice, social justice, and even political justice, and so on. Now the other one is inclusiveness. Inclusiveness. To be inclusive, this is very important. Islam emphasizes inclusiveness and not exclusiveness. So contrary to what many Muslims are believing and what they are doing, all right, because they point many of them really having this kind of spirit of exclusiveness, to exclude people, whereas Islam was revealed by God to bring the spirit of inclusiveness. If only people care, Muslims people care to look at, say, for example, the 6 articles of faith. They are universal and inclusive. Look at the 5 pillars of Islam. It's inclusive again. So, in other words, compared, I dare to say that compared to all the other religions, Islam has to be more inclusive. Yeah? It's more inclusive, and that spirit, that theological, even at the level of theology, right? That inclusiveness has going to have a very, very important impact on society. And now the other one, very, very important, I would like to bring this up. It is not a new issue, an old issue, but I would like to call upon Muslims especially to rethink about this social political institution called Ulil Amri. Ulil Amri. Minkum. It's in the Quran. I'll show you afterward the verse. Now, but before, of course, this concept of Ulil Amri, Minkum is referring to the people in authority, those who have been entrusted with power and authority, and therefore all the other members, the citizens of the country, they have to obey this Ulil Amri. And but there have been abuses, precisely because those people have tried to make a kind of this unconditional obedience. So I'll show. Can you show the next slide first? Yes. Now, please refer to the Quran, Surah An-Nisa, Surah 4, chapter 4, verses 58-59. I think there's a need to look at the two verses together, because in my opinion, this is one of the best Quranic principles of governance and democracy. All right. The next slide, just want to go to the translation, please, of that verse, the two verses together. Yes, in this verse, Inna Allah ya'murukum an tu'addul amanati ila ahliha wa idha hakamtum bayna an-nasi an tahkumu bil adli inna Allah ni'ma ya'izukum bihi inna Allah kana samian basira. Allah commands you to render back your trust. That's the word trust here, amanah. To render back your trust to those to whom they are due. In other words, they qualified. Ila ahliha. So they deserve the trust because they are ahliha. In other words, they are the people who have the knowledge, the experts to that. And not Jonas, please. And when you judge between man and man, then judge with justice. Verily, how excellent is the teaching which He gives you. For Allah is He who hears and sees all things. Now, this is a very important verse concerning governance, and it brings here the idea of amanah, trust, justice. There's a need to judge people with justice. And the next one, yes, the next slide. I just want to read it. Yes. Ya ayyuhallazina amanu ati'u Allah wa ati'u Rasul wa ulil amri minkum fa in tanaza'tum fi shay'in farudduhu ila Allah wa Rasul in kuntum tu'minuna billahi wal yawmil akhir dzalika khairun wa ahsanu ta'wila. Wa ahsanu ta'wila is very, very important there. Now, all you who believe, obey Allah, obey the Messenger, and those charged with authority among you. Ulil amri minkum. Now, this is very important because this is the principle also underlying the democracy. In other words, the people are going to represent the community, the society. They are the ulil amri minkum. They are elected from among them. Although the Quran does not mention the mechanism, but the point is, if we differ anything, because it's bound in a democratic system, that different opinions and so on. But the point is, what is the mechanism that Islam recommends in order to resolve disputes? You see, if you differ in anything among yourselves, refer it to God and His Messenger, meaning refer to the Quran and refer to the Prophet's example. Now, if you do believe in Allah and the last day, now this is the best suitable for final determination and the best decision to be made. وَأَحْسَنُ تَأْوِيلًا. Of course, you want to comment on that to provide a tafsir of that. I mean, it's very, very rich indeed what it means. So go back to the earlier slides for me to continue. I think the next two slides, the previous two slides, please. Yes, another one. The principles, another one before that. Yes. So I would, in other words, it is good if Muslims today go back to that concept of ulil amri. The ulil amri is also related, very, very closely related to what in Islamic political refers to ahlul hal wal aqdi. If you can translate that one in experts in untying and binding. Whenever I look at this phrase, Ahlul Halli wal Aqdi. I always remember of Parliament. I think the members of Parliament should belong to the Ahlul Halli wal Aqdi, literally meaning untying and binding. If I want to use the word Malay, penghurai dan penyimpul, hurai dan simpul. Kerjanya hurai dan simpul. Hurai means to use your intellect to analyze. Hurai means analysis, to analyze all the problem. But there's no point just analyzing the problem without the solution. Therefore, we need the penyimpul. All right, we need a penyimpul, the binding, and I think we need members of parliament, senators who belong to this kind of thing. Inshallah. Now the other one is the value-based technology. This is very, very important. Value-based technology. It's not just simply technology, but value-based. I think if we look at modern technology, one of the often and best critics against modern technology is because it is somehow detached from the human values, the ethical values, the moral values. It's more like a technology just simply based on power, is based on wealth. In other words, technology has turned into something which seeks to monopolize power and wealth. It widens the gulf between the poor and the rich. What is the purpose of technology? As a student of philosophy of technology, I don't say that. I mean, the technology is supposed to be the instrument of human being, is to serve the needs of human being, to create justice in human being. But there are a lot of critics that can be leveled against this technology. All right. Now, if I were to just look at here, it's a very, very important example. We claim that, of course, we are very proud. We take pride in living in the digital age. In other words, what digital technology has done to the progress of human beings in the areas of many different areas. But I want to illustrate the dual nature of this issue of technology. Just take digital technology. Now, when the Putrajaya came into existence, and in the new administrative capital in Putrajaya, Dr. Mahathir at the time wanted to turn Putrajaya into center of e-governance, to make Kuala Lumpur, Putrajaya, the first Muslim capital to go all out, full and on e-governance. Yes, we did. In other words, Malaysia was the first Muslim country, and certainly ahead of many other countries as far as e-governance was concerned. E-governance did many wonders. It improved, it facilitated governance in a way that we had not seen before. We, in a sense, removed the paper, the paper governance. We go for paperless governance. Yeah, but that's only one side of it. Now it is the same e-governance that was later used to facilitate the opposite, not efficient government, but corruption. In other words, corruption, the worst corruption in our history, that happened in the light of the e-governance, the digital technology. So digital technology, while it helps certainly vastly improve the performance of governance, but it was also used as a means as an instrument for the things that go against the very principles of justice and governance. Now, this is a very important point to remember, to take note. There is an old proverb saying that a thief who stole things in the dark will only can manage to get a certain amount of things. Yeah. A thief can only steal a certain amount of things. But you give a thief a lamp or a torchlight, he will be able to steal more. Right? Now, in modern times, when the thieves are better educated, when thieves are equipped with a more sophisticated technology, you can expect the kind of how much they'll be able to get from society. So I think it is important for universities, colleges and universities, especially those which teach technology. We want to teach the consumption of technology, creation of technology. They should also teach philosophy of technology that is value-based, based on ethics. In other words, human beings will always be human beings. Technology cannot erase the animal nature in man, the nature, such things as greed, arrogance. No technology can remove this from human nature. And this can only be erased by spirituality, by good ethics. And this is important to be noted when we talk about the new horizon of good governance. There's always something. Modern, in other words, one thing about the contemporary man, as far as technology is concerned, they easily forget about the human nature. Okay, the next slide, please. Yes. In a sense, these several points that I have here in this slide is basically to emphasize the significance of ulil amri minkum. That is those charged with authority from among you, as far as governance is concerned. So the first point here, I repeat, this is one of the Quranic principles of governance and democracy, one of the most relevant as far as I'm concerned. Number two, now these verses talk about an enlightened, dynamic, and action-oriented group emerging from and dissolving into the community. That is this group, the ulil amri minkum. Yeah. So in other words, it talks about obedience, of course. If you remember just now the verses, or obedience to God, obedience to Prophet. So obedience is an important aspect of good governance. Now, come to the day, we have to think about it in what way that good governance has got to do with the qualities of loyalty and obedience. Because precisely because governance also brings up the issue of leadership and followership. We need good leaders. We also need good followership. Islam insists both. We have good leaders, but poor followers, it doesn't help. But we have good followers, but poor leaders, also doesn't help. So we need both. We need both good leadership, and good followership. Certainly, I would like to say here about obedience. There are three types of obedience. Three types of obedience. First, you have the ignorant obedience. Ignorant obedience. It's not based on knowledge. Just based on something else, based on other consideration. You follow. Leaders are to follow. You follow because what I call this, what I call this ignorant obedience. The other one is hypocritical obedience. Now, hypocritical obedience. This is not good. This is in fact could become a dangerous social cancer if that becomes a culture. This, in other words, it's not based upon knowledge. It's not based upon spiritual values. What we need is, of course, what Islam talks about obedience is enlightened obedience. In other words, it's based on knowledge. There's a reason why obedience is made necessary in certain circumstances. Now, the other one is commitment to consultative democracy and dialogue culture. Quite clearly, if you reflect on the two verses that I just quoted of the Quran, precisely, in our the concept of ulil amri minkum, commitment to consultative democracy and dialogue culture. If we have differences, refer to the Quran and the Prophet's Sunnah. And another one, of course, is loyalty to the philosophical framework of governance that is at once theological, universal, and inclusive. This is meant to be addressed to non-Muslims. I think for it is important that Muslims have to take lead. Then, although we refer to the Quran and the Prophet Sunnah, as far as we are concerned, this is universal in nature. You cannot have something more universal than what is being offered by the Quran. All right, next slide, please. Hello. I think I come to the next one. Next one. Yes. Basically, the last slide of my presentation. The future of governance. And I've been given a topic. The subtitle of my presentation is about the new horizon. And certainly, I share that sentiment. In other words, if we understand Islam, if we understand the teachings of Islam in their entirety, if we understand the Quran really understand, and we understand the Prophet's Sunnah, then I think there's something that Islam can offer to the whole of humankind in facing the present and future challenges. But many people laugh when we see that, because people look at the present conditions of the Muslims. We are in bad shape. How can we play that role? How can we in that sense? Well, I make the difference between the point is there is a lot of wisdom. It's wisdom in the Quran, and that wisdom is not just meant for Muslims. If we invite others to this wisdom, we also inviting the Muslims themselves, who are now many of whom do not understand about the old Quran. But what's important is for those who know well the message in the Quran, then we should, and they feel that that knowledge should be shared with the rest of humanity. So what's important to be noted is that first, there's a wider and deeper interrelatedness of global affairs. The global community, the human community is going to be more interrelated in their human affairs. That looks like that is the plan of God's plan. From Adam and Eve, from the first human couple, the first human family, humanity spreads throughout the earth. And it spread to all corners of the globe. Now, in a sense, the members of the human family are brought back. So in other words, the consciousness that we belong to a single family, the human family, dawn upon our consciousness in a more marked way than ever before. And we are seeing that change in our lifetime. We are seeing that the global affairs of the human community are getting deeper and deeper, again more and more interrelated. And therefore, that interrelatedness needs the concept of unity. We are more and more aware of our diversity. But there is no point knowing about diversity without knowing how to bring that diversity into a unity. Without unity, we will just be, in a sense, floating around without any sense of direction. Now, and therefore, and of course, the second point is the needed reforms for the world bodies. which means governance. All bodies at all levels, local, district, national, regional, and of course, including the United Nations itself, having existed for some time, certainly reform is needed at the lowest as well as the highest level of human organization. And where do we get the ideas for this reform? Is it by trial and error, by experimenting? No, I think people can continue with that. But the point is, especially for Muslims, why should we waste the wisdom that has been given? The Quran, the Quran is the last scripture. Islam is the last religion. That's what the Quran claims, which means that there's not going to be any more new religion, any more new scripture, a new secular law. We don't have that. Also the last. But are we applying the wisdom to that to solve the current problems? Now, the point is the shaping of the idea of planetary governance. The issue of climate change, global warming is a good example of the current ecological disorder. Reminds us of the idea that humanity needs better ideas, better practices to deal with the condition of our planet. The planetary health is deteriorating, not better. It's getting worse. And this is our only home. Spiritual leaders like the Dalai Lama talks about the earth as our only home. Pope Francis talks about our earth as our only home. And for us, for the Muslim, that idea about man's only planetary home is in the Quran itself. We have been placed on planet Earth for a period of time, but we cannot move to anywhere else. Of course, people can try, but as far as the universe is concerned, no. I mean, this is our home. But we have governed this planet rather poorly. And finally, the growing importance of integral ecology. This is my own interest in several years. In other words, it's not simply to talk about ecology, ecological health of our human society, of our planet Earth, but integral ecology. What I mean by integral ecology is that it's a worldview in which we look at our different levels of environment. To start with, the biophysical environment, which is under threat. Then you have the built environment, the kind of cities we'll build. In other words, the kind of architectural philosophy, something that is not in conformity with the idea of ecological health. And of course, the cultural, this cultural environment. The kind of human ecology. So, integral ecology means now the problems that we face in the world today is such that we cannot just think in compartmentalization, but we need to look at cultural ecology, cultural environment, which is shaped by human behavior, by our way of life, and then the built environment and the biophysical environment must be looked at from an integrated point of view. And for that, we need the message of Tawhid. The principle of Tawhid will remain the important principle that can somehow integrate these three different environments into one whole. And but it's a great challenge because in terms of knowledge, in terms of attitudes, and so on, we do not reach the level required yet. But inshallah, may Allah guide us to the right path. May Allah guide us to how to deal with the present challenges to our planetary health. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you. Thank you indeed. Thank you indeed to Professor Datuk Dr. Osman. Always, for me as a journalist, I think Prof. Datuk Dr. Osman should have a TV channel all on his own. There's never enough room for any current platform, media or otherwise, to put the sheer immense knowledge that he has and wisdom. That's more important. And maybe if you are going to take a drink or somewhere, if I can put it in a bottle for you, you know, Prof. Datuk Dr. Osman just ties up everything for us. The theme of Noor Conference 2021, the future, good governance. Prof. Datuk Dr. Osman started with reminding us of civilization, tamadun. And then that's where we should look at the meaning of tadbir or governance, and reminded us of Allah as the greatest governor of all. And from there, he goes down to link it to what we have now and what we have in store for the future. You know, from my perspective, understanding what Professor Datuk Dr. Osman said, maybe carving up geographies of the world, living in tribes as nation states, not good enough anymore to save planet Earth. The humankind may need to come together more as one to be able to survive this challenge of pandemic, climate crisis and stuff like that. I mean, for a developed nation to have 700% vaccine as compared to some other nations that didn't have any vaccine at all. So the ummah of the world is challenged, but it starts with the discourse, it starts with musyawarah, and it starts with an idea and wisdom. Thank you so much, Emeritus Professor Datuk Dr. Osman Bakar, for starting and kicking off Noor Conference 2021 with such wisdom, such deep insights and foresights. I hope I can meet you face to face, inshallah, one day, and together we will be deliberating more and more about this very important thing. So, thank you so much, Datuk Dr. Osman. So I would like to reset the room again, as they like to say in social media nowadays. You've heard the keynote, you have heard the opening speeches, and now it's time to go to the grill, as they call it. It's time to go and deep dive into economics and geopolitics in the parallel sessions. But as usual, some of you are so busy that while you were registering for this conference, you skip past the part where it says choose which session you want to go into. So now the organizer has been kind enough to put on your screen. You know, it's at the side. If you're on the phone, maybe it's a little bit under there. So just find the toggle or the graphic saying breakout session. Is right there and on the top beside the share screen, or sorry, not at the top, you know, at the lower third. You know, the security participant chat menu, the share screen, the record screen, then there'll be a breakout session there. You just click it. There will be two choices for you, either geopolitics or economics. Both have impressive speakers, way better moderator MC than I am, and you can choose that. That will take you for about an hour and a half. And after that, once it's finished, you can keep on the line or you can go off, but come back, because Noor Conference Part 2, in a sense, will start at 2 o'clock with even more interesting sessions. And at the end, if we have heard and started with the wisdom of Professor Emeritus Datuk Osman, it surely will be complemented by the great Datuk Dr. Afifi Al-Akidi, the guy who, when I first interviewed him, you know, made the link between Harry Potter and Islamic traditions and knowledge. Indeed, it has been a wonderful half day for the Noor Conference, first ever, 2021. Again, I would like to gently remind you that if you've not made the choice, make it now. Go and look at your screen closer and you can see a menu for breakout sessions. Choose that. You will be transported into two parallel sessions. You will be transported into one of them according to your choice. Either it's geopolitics or economics. Both have great sets of panelists and moderator. And that will take you right up until maybe 12:30 for about 1 hour and a half. and after that there'll be a break, and the second half, the later part of Noor Conference 2021 will begin again at 2. So with that, I would like to thank you so much. This journey ends here for me. I'll be joining you on the floor to look and listen to all the great discussions that's happening immediately, the 2 breakout parallel sessions on geopolitics, 1, and 2nd on economics, choose 1. But you can feel free to weave in between one or the other according to your needs and leisure. Thank you very much and enjoy the breakout sessions.
What we are going to be doing this morning, inshallah, is talk a little bit about the topic that has been assigned for this session, which is value-based economy, a circular effort to revitalize global economic endeavors. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are now approaching the 2nd anniversary of the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic. And as the world took a pause through many lockdowns over the past 18 months, we discovered that what was unwell with the world was not just the people, but also our whole global socio-economic system. The pandemic has laid bare a number of systemic problems that we have conveniently over the years swept under the carpets. We saw how wealth for the global elites continued to grow at the expense of the livelihood of people that need such wealth to trickle down. So we need change, and we need fast change. We need to build an inclusive and self-sustaining economic ecosystem, and perhaps we need to start a movement to dissolve the ultra-capitalistic system that maybe will start to carve a path for new sustainable ways to ravage this old ethos. Many regions around the world have already started doing this. Many nations around the world have started doing this. So what about us? What do we need in order to re-engineer a compelling comeback? Not only for Malaysia, but for the global Muslim community, the Ummah as a whole. Some have suggested a number of taxation reforms, for example, with endowments or wakaf used as a mechanism to re-establish our priorities of growth in marginalized communities. Maybe it is now high time for us to rethink and act beyond just national lines and think of aiding humankind first. Are we ready for a more radical and drastic approach in order for us to heal our economic mechanisms and adapt them to the needs of a new transnational agenda? So these are the questions that we need answers to. And with me today, I have two esteemed speakers who will, over the next perhaps 60 minutes or so, sorry, apologies for that. Over the next 60 minutes or so, we'll discuss the issue at hand. So allow me to introduce them to you. I'll go in alphabetical order. So first of all, we have Mr. Abdullah Han. Abdullah Han Guang Yu is the co-founder of Kidney Network, the first public chain dedicated to serving the ecosystem of ethical finance, socially responsible investments and Islamic finance as well. He's also the co-founder of HLC Foundation and the managing director of HLC Technologies. In addition to this, he's also the co-founder of Al-Sadiq Consulting Company Limited, an ethical advisory firm based in China and Malaysia, focusing on creating enduring value for its shareholders, customers, employees, and communities. Mr. Abdullah brings with him more than 10 years of extensive experience of marketing, strategy, e-business strategy, technology management, with small to listed companies from Asia, Africa, the Middle East, North America. He's a frequent keynote speaker, and he has spoken about blockchain, Islamic finance, the Belt and Road Initiative, and also fintech. He's also an expert in these areas and has been featured on a number of television series in a number of countries around the world. Mr. Abdullah is a graduate from in international marketing from Minzu University in China, where he was born, and he has spent 4 years in Lagos, Nigeria. After graduation from university, he's also traveled extensively in the Muslim world and beyond. Mr. Abdullah joins us today from New York. So welcome, Mr. Abdullah. Maybe you can wave a little bit to our, so there's Mr. Abdullah coming from New York. And then our other panelist is none other than Professor Emeritus Dr. Bajoya Bardai. Professor Emeritus Dr. Bajoya Bardai needs little introduction actually amongst those in the field of accounting, finance and economics. He's currently with University Tun Abdul Razak. This is Uni Razak, not Unita, which I was initially confused with. He's been there for the last 13 years and he's actively also teaching at a number of different institutions in Malaysia, continuing on even after retirement from University Kebangsaan Malaysia, where he was a professor of accounting and taxation. Professor Bajoya graduated with a degree in accounting from University Malaya in 1975 and subsequently obtained an MSc in Industrial Administration from Aston Business School in Birmingham, which is actually not very far from my house. He also got a PhD from UCL in taxation. He is actively involved in business as well as holding a number of advisory roles at a number of organizations, as well as being the current president of the Malaysian Chamber of Certified Professionals. Now, his research interests span the realm of Qardul Hasan, Wakaf institutions, Halal and Kamilan, principle and practices, family entrepreneurship, and entrepreneurial development programs amongst youngsters in Malaysia. He's a very prolific academic author, and he has presented and published over 1,000 papers in journals and conferences over the last 25 years. He joins us from Kuala Lumpur. Welcome, Professor. Maybe Professor also can wave to our audience. Okay, so welcome both panelists. Just a quick overview of how we want to run this session. We're already about 15 minutes in. I will be putting a series of questions to our speakers over the next hour or so, after which point I will open the floor for questions from the audience. Inshallah, if we have more time we will be able to take a number of more questions. But if I could just preempt this by saying that if you do have a question, please jot it down and try and be as clear and as succinct as possible in stating your question, so that we can afford more time to our panelists to provide an answer to keep the discussion going. So please do take note of any questions you may have, and I'll be taking them at the end of the session. Without any further ado, I think I'll begin right now, and I'll kind of begin the opening question. This question goes to both speakers, but maybe we will start with, because I introduced Mr. Abdullah first, we'll start the first question with Prof. So our topic today revolves around the idea of a value-based economy. And different people seem to actually define this idea of a value-based economy differently. For you, what kind of values would you like to see in our economy as we chart this unprecedented path of recovery after COVID-19? Maybe Prof can start.
Okay. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Ms. Moderator. Okay, first of all, actually there are many definitions of value-based economy. And in the general terms, we say that value-based economy means it is an economic system that is based on values. But there is also another movement now trying to define value-based economy that is actually economic that is based on value-added, which actually loosely defined as the government will actually create money based on the value or productivity generated by the government servant. So every month, the government servant will get minted money printed by the government. And that way, we will not have the banking system anymore. No banking rules of credit creation or money creation. And money will only be printed by government. And then money will reflect the true productivity or value added created by the government. And then we leave the private sector also to create value added, and they pay their employee based on the productivity. And this is a new movement that will basically try to solve the problem with money today. And actually, money is a big problem because money has been misinterpreted in many ways. I mean, money is supposed to be just an intermediary, just a measurements of value and just a medium of exchange. But money has been used now as basically cow that will create basically more cows, and that's the issue basically. Okay, but now let's go back to the value-based economy in Islam. In Islam, we have not separate between economics and religion, and so actually economic is part of the religion. So there is always a debate on whether there is such thing as Islamic economy, because actually economic is part of life, part of our way of life as a Muslim, and as part of our life in Islam, economic actually have full of value that we have to conform, and with that it can create another perspective of economic. And the current economic system that we are running is separating the secularism, separating between the economic system and the value system, the religion. Maybe I will stop there for a while.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Mr. Abdullah, same question. Your thoughts on the value-based economy and perhaps what kind of values you'd like to see in our economy as we recover from COVID-19.
Assalamualaikum. Thanks for the questions from moderator, and I'm very honored to have this opportunity to speak together with a professor. Firstly, because I'm an entrepreneur and investor, I'm doing business around the world. So firstly, I think that we need a sound monetary system. We need a hard currency and a sound currency that is different from central bank. So I can give you a little bit example according to my experience. So like 5 years ago, I was doing business in Zimbabwe. So I went to a factory and I was asking for quotation for how much is the cost of the steel ton. All right, they give me a very a quotation that is like trillions of trillions. All right, but they indicate that the quotation will be only valid for 2 hours. So you will see, yeah. So this is a real business use case. So I think that the inflation is seriously a problem because of the infinite money supply, not only in arid jurisdictions, not only in the developing economy like Zimbabwe, Nigeria, but also in the United States, which I'm based right now. So I think that we need to utilize like technology to develop kind of new monetary system that can control, redefine the meaning of money, and reconsider our thought pattern about money circulation. This is one of my understandings. And apart from that, I think like value-based economy need to carry need to stick to some core values. Firstly, we should pursue transparency. We should pursue traceability. We should ask for cost efficiency, and also we should ask for inclusiveness from all levels of our society, from all verticals of our business economic development. So we need a sound economic structure that is against inflation, that can bring down the transaction cost from all levels of our society. So likewise, right now, I was involved in like activities, like initiatives before. So to raise like money from China and to support the Muslim economies. So because of this campaign, I have like the preception they might ask for the mask, for the vaccination, all this kind of thing. But they were asking for food, some basic demand, you know. So because of this campaign, so a pandemic, it has hurt the Muslim economies in many ways. So that is why my answer is that the value-based economy is that we need to develop kind of all the stakeholders, including government, the private sectors, and the private citizens, to develop a sound monetary system to fight against inflation and bring down the transaction cost and of our society, and also stick to the core values like transparency, traceability, cost efficiency, and inclusiveness. That is my understanding about value-based economy. Thank you.
Mr. Abdullah, you brought up a couple of interesting points about how technology can actually bring this forward for the Muslim economies and the global ummah. We will be revisiting that in a couple of questions further down the line. Inshallah, give you a little bit more space to perhaps elaborate on that. But for now, I would like to turn back to Prof. Bajoy to talk a little bit about the economic recovery, Prof. So when it comes to economic recovery, as you both Mr. Abdullah and Prof. Bajoy pointed out, money is a massive issue, right? Not just in terms of inflation, but just the money supply in itself. So a lot of commenters have talked about public spending having to be balanced with revenue. We want public spending, but the public spending must come from somewhere. So many parties have called for a reform of our taxation system and who we tax as a way of generating more revenue. Prof, in your background in taxation, in your earlier academic life, what are your thoughts on this taxation reform, and what changes do you think we need as a country, first of all in Malaysia, and second of all globally?
Okay. Let's look at Malaysia first, for example. We, of course, are always short of money to run the economy. The government every year has to cope up with the deficit. And this year, the deficit is expected to be 5.7%. And the government has to borrow money in order to cover the deficit. And now the government has borrowed over 58% of the gross domestic product. And the Minister of Finance is going to bring this motion to the Parliament to increase the debt ratio to 65 to 70%. And the question is that necessary? Of course, the alternative that you say about is increasing taxation. If we increase tax, we try to balance the tax collection with the spending, then there is no need to borrow. There is will not have any deficit. But the challenge is, at the same time, taxation is seen as a burden, and nobody really like to pay tax because tax is an obligation. If you don't pay tax, you go to jail. But the question is, many people cannot relate what they pay in terms of tax and the benefit that they get, because they only see the direct benefit. For example, they do not see that they exist, for example, in a country operating and making profit, and it is just right for them to contribute back some of the profit that they make. If the spirit can be adopted, then everybody will be happy to pay tax. But to most of us, we regard tax as an expenses. Now, let's explore back the first questions of the value-based economy that I mentioned. Under that system, we can abolish the whole tax system. We don't have to collect any tax because the government can freely issue money to pay for their public servant and to pay for the supply that they need, for example. Of course, isn't that the same as printing money? Yes, it is printing money, but it is responsible printing, because you only issue money based on the productivity of the civil servant. I'll give you an example. The inland revenue today in Malaysia is more or less being privatized. They are corporatized, and they are actually collecting fee from the government for the job that they are doing to collect tax from the public. So they collect fee like 2% or 2.5% from the total tax that they collected. And that is, to me, a good productivity. I mean, we have eliminated all the burdens to collect tax, and we only have to pay 2.5%. So our productivity in tax collection is very high. What if we can do the same for all other government services? We have also done for example, car inspection. We have done also for corporate companies administration. We have done for stock exchange, and all these institutions are now making money. Stock exchange Malaysia as a company is making 100 millions of profit. The company commissions on Malaysia every year make 400 million profit. So if we can privatize all our government mechanism and created value-added equivalent, we can actually relieve the government from all those budgets. Today, the government spends 78 billion just to pay salary to the civil servant, and there's another 100 billion that we pay pensions and all the obligation, the transfer obligation. So that's the issue. Of course, I mean, this is going to create a big restructuring that may shock the nation, but this is what we need: disruptive technology to really correct the situation if we want to make it really good. Because the prediction is that if we are working on a linear basis of economic development, Malaysia will be doomed. We need to introduce destructive technology in order to really launch a new rapid development program for the nation for the next 5 years. Let me stop there first.
Prof, maybe a little bit about, just probe you a little bit more about this restructuring, yeah, you mentioned this radical technology, this radical restructuring. So if we reflect on the situation of the people today, we do not have, for example, good social safety nets for a lot of people that are in the informal economy. As just one small example, and the fallout from that as a result of COVID-19 has become very apparent. Are we able to do this? Are we able to restructure and be radical given the economic situation that we are currently in as a country?
Thank you. I mean, I was reserving that for later on, but I will share with you now. Basically, actually, our government is not has not been irresponsible in this. They've been creating some sort of social protection system. They created the Employee Provident Fund, and they forced the employee to contribute and forced the employer to contribute. So every month, 25% saving is forced. And that created a prospect for retirement fund. And for normal people, actually, I was not a contributor because I was in the pension scheme. But for a normal contributor, if they start as a graduate, when they retire after 40 years, they would have 1 million ringgit in the EPF. So that should be enough as an endowment fund to bring them for retirement until they die. Also, we also have SOCSO. SOCSO is a basically protection when you are working. So you employee contribute and employee also contribute, and if there is any accident, health problem, that will be protected. But that is not enough. There's a lot of self-employed. There's a lot of household that do not work. Are they protected? Recently, the government came out with this scheme of takaful. They give 50 ringgit rebate for every family to start a takaful program with 1 ringgit a month a premium to protect them in case of casualty. And to me, that is all just a petty thing. What we need is a more comprehensive thing. And in Islam, we have wakaf as an institution, an endowment institution. Just look at how this was done in Norway. They created the oil trust fund, and when they discovered oil in 1993, so they were determined that this is natural resources. This should belong to the people, and so they invested everything from the oil proceeds. Today, in less than 20 years, their oil fund is worth $10 trillion. And that assured that the government every year is having 30% budget provided by the fund. And they assure that every citizen will have a house. And today, every citizen of Norway is technically a millionaire because they have houses worth 1 million each, for example. That's the ultimate visions that we want to get into, inshallah.
Okay, maybe just probe you a little bit more on that with this Norway. I like this idea because this is an example actually goes on to the question that I think I've kind of covered a little bit. The idea that we create this wakaf. People think of wakaf as if you have a small kind of pondo or something across, or a small house, and you give it to the public. That's a wakaf. But this example of Norway is a very practical example of what can be done if we use that kind of thinking, this kind of Islamic concept thinking, in rejuvenating an economy. We kind of have missed the boat with our oil here. We discovered oil a lot earlier, but we didn't take this kind of action. Is there any other potential still for this in if we wanted to move forward?
It is never too late. We still have Petronas, and Petronas though have almost exhausted our oil. But Petronas is now a multinational, and they operate in more than 30 countries in the world. They have oil reserve everywhere in the world. And today, Petronas is worth maybe like 800 billion. And we also have Khazanah. Khazanah is a company owned by government that actually have a list of all these listed company. I mean, one example of their investment is IIH, the International Healthcare, for example, is bought by Nippon, the majority, and we still have 30% there, and it's worth over 20 billion, for example. So if we really want to do, if the government really dare enough to do, why don't we create this endowment fund and we park all these assets of government, Petronas, Khazanah, PNB, and all the reserve land of the government, park it there so that it will be permanent in there and it will be managed by professional. Every year it will generate dividend, and we then try to structure the social protection system from the dividend, not from the principal. We will leave the principal as our perpetual investment.
Like a normal fixed income deposit that people normally would.
That's right. Yes. Yes.
Okay. So those are some very interesting ideas that we can actually we can actually think about when we talk about trying to rejuvenate economic recovery. I'm going to kind of move to Mr. Abdullah for the next set of questions that I've got, and I want to build on this idea or this point that Prof pointed out about the need for our economic or social protection in Malaysia, because yesterday, for example, there was a press release by our Employee Providence Fund that is very worrying, because the statistics tell us that almost 50%, 46% of members below the age of 55 have less than 10,000 ringgit in their savings account. Now, Mr. Abdullah, there's been a lot of criticism leveled at the banking sector, the finance sector in the past decade or so. First, they blame the banks for being an impetus to the global financial crisis, and then subsequently, now people are criticizing the finance sector for recording high profits during a time where we see a lot of people struggling, like this EPF case. As a result of this, a lot of thought has come from academics, from scholars, about bringing more responsible finance to the fore. What are your thoughts on the idea of responsible finance and how this would relate to revitalizing not just the economy but the Islamic economy? You're muted, Mr. Abdullah.
Thank you. Yeah. So I think the 2008 financial crisis is a lesson for the world economy. And during this pandemic, obviously, we can see the legacy financial system is very fragile and it's very costly. And it is very, very costly. And also because of the monetary policy adopted by all the government, it has infinite supply of money, which means like it causes like seriously inflations across all the economy. Even United States are exporting like inflation to the rest of the world. So in terms of responsive finance, and it is one of our approach from the Muslim and part of the West. We are trying to reorient and our thought pattern understandings how we treat financial system. We should reduce make sure all the transactions are relevant to the real economy. We should stay away from speculation and make sure that the real economy is served not only when government injects the liquidity and money goes to the real estate market and the stock market. It does not serve the real economy. And also the small and medium enterprise are exclusive from all this kind of financial service. So we in particular with like Islamic finance or responsible finance, we not only need we need like a kind of like deliver more substance, make it more concrete, make it like make it more concrete, make it more substantial, make it more tangible. We need to adopt responsible finance, not only from perception, from concept. We need a regulation system. We need the liquidity. We need innovation, technology, the disruptive innovation to be adopted as a new underlying factors to drive the adoption from the mainstream. So that is why I think that I propose, and I also call for the participation from all the stakeholders to make like Islamic economy more substantial, more concrete, focused on the true delivery of the values. Yeah, thank you.
I could just
if I can chip in, Dr. Idlan.
Yes.
Yes, I want to chip in there on the problem with the banking system in Malaysia and elsewhere in the conventional system. The system that is used by the Federal Reserve Bank or the central bank to help creating money, and this is the job of commercial bank actually, to create money. So they create credit. They then give this credit to their client, their borrowers. And so, but the problem is, in the course of doing that, they make tons of money because they charge interest. So if we can imagine a banking system without interest, of course, that was the promise of Islamic Bank. So we created Islamic Bank, and we say that Islamic Bank is not practicing riba, but they replace that riba with profit, and they calculate profit as actually proxy to riba, and so that's the issue. What if we could create the real Qardul Hasan Bank, the benevolent bank that really do not charge any interest on the borrowing? Of course, the bank say that, are you crazy? The bank will not be able to survive giving free interest loan. But think of it that the bank is now moving from the focusing on interest, or what is termed as the asset and liability management, into investment management. So the bank is collecting all the deficit from the public and manage that deposit in their investment, and then share some of the investment, some to pay for their overhead and administration, some to help the poor, and some they can return back to the depositor as hibah, for example. If that can be implemented, then we eliminated the riba system. And then there was a projection by a famous economy that if we eliminate interest in this world, in 15 years, we can reach zero poverty in this world. Wallahu alam.
I like that comment about Islamic banks and what I call pseudo riba. It's not a riba in the actual sense, but it's actually in substance of a form, if I may use an accounting analogy there. Mr. Abdullah, going back to these ideas that Prof has put forward, and also your proposal that we've got to have improved regulation, more innovation, and perhaps thinking more about how we could challenge the current system. Who do you think should be taking the lead on this at the global stage? Who should be making the noise so that people will start actually taking action? Because there's a lot of talk, but not a lot of people are walking the talk. Maybe your thoughts on that, Mr. Abdullah.
Of course, the people, everyone. I think I can give share some opinions. Like in terms of global cryptocurrency that is initiated by Satoshi Nakamoto Right now, we have a lot of supporters from Wall Street, from all the big CEOs, from multinational companies like Elon Musk, and also like Micro Saylor from MicroStrategy from Wall Street. A lot of like traditional entrepreneurs, they're trying to utilize Bitcoin and cryptocurrency as a new means of payment. Of course, from the Muslim world, and me and Brother Effendi, we are one of the, let me say, the pioneers trying to converge Islamic finance and blockchain. And in the question, maybe you ask later, so I can share more details and what is the concrete approach, not only by perception, but also by reality, how it works, and who is the drivers, and who is going to benefit from that, and how do we engage the stakeholders, and to incentivize the participation from everyone. Yes, I'll share that one later. Yeah.
Okay, if I can just be a little bit controversial and probe this, because you're the expert on this, and this is something that comes up in a lot of conversations with people that I find a little bit more skeptical about cryptocurrency. There's a comment, or frequently said comment, that it's popular because people believe it can make them rich. Because early adopters of Bitcoin, for example, made their first billion, etc., with the their cryptocurrency investment. But actually, in the long run, this will just go back to normal, and people will abandon it once they realize that they cannot make lots of money like the early adopters. What are your comments on that?
Okay, it's a very good question, and it's a very general perception. Firstly, I support Bitcoin, and then I also have some comment. I think the biggest innovation of Bitcoin, you see, we call it cryptocurrency, but initial definition of Bitcoin is actually the payment system. It's a payment infrastructure trying to to create the value transfer from peer-to-peer level without the involvement intermediaries. Because actually, you see, why the bank has a chance to utilize interest, because we need them. So, but when we adopt Bitcoin as a payment work, actually we can conduct a value transfer to any part of the world without involvement of bank. So basically, we can eliminate interest immediately, technically. But along the way, along the development of Bitcoin, and there's a lot of speculation. There's a lot of risk, and the Bitcoin cannot be utilized as a payment infrastructure because of the transaction per second is very low, and it can only support 20,000 people if you utilize Bitcoin as a legal tender or as a payment network. But Bitcoin right now becomes like a storage of value. So we need a scaling approach to make sure that this payment infrastructure will work. All right. And then apart from that one, regarding your concern about what is the underlying value about Bitcoin, right? So you will see that Bitcoin actually is a monetary energy storage. Is a monetary storage of the energy. Because I'm recently based in Houston, I'm working with a lot of gas company in Texas. Because I have a lot of gas, and these gas are flaring gas and not doing anything, and they are and right now we burn this gas and utilize gas to generate electricity and use electricity to mine a Bitcoin. So you will see that is Bitcoin is the digital form of the energy. So when Google, all right. Google, as a company of $1.8 trillion, it consumes $180 billion energy. So if you utilize an injector $1, it will generate maybe $20 from Google, but it will generate $200 from Bitcoin network. So Bitcoin, proof of work, might be the best way for the energy storage to utilize energy. And if you compare Bitcoin in the long term, actually the price is going up. Because when I was involved in Bitcoin like 5 years ago, it only cost me like maybe $1,000, and right now it's $50,000. So, so if you check from long term, Bitcoin is a very good instrument that to fight against inflation. Yeah.
Thank you. I think you have actually, you know, even in your first sentence there, pointed out a very important thing is about the system, what underlies the whole kind of phenomenon of any kind of cryptocurrency is actually the ability to you know, have a payment system that actually you know, reimagines how we do banking. It's in the world. So maybe this is a good time, I think, to kind of bring you into the question about fintech and this kind of a neat segue. We've seen a lot of advancements in the field of fintech, especially.
Can I chip in that?
Oh yeah.
Can I chip in about this? Yes, about the cryptocurrency there.
Okay, sure.
Actually, the concept of money in Islam, Al-Ghazali in the 1100 years ago, has actually state clearly that money is only a mean of exchange and a measure of value. It should not be considered as commodity. And Ibn Taymiyyah also said the same thing. And Ibn Khaldun said God created gold and silver to serve as a standard, and gold and silver do not constitute wealth as such, but have only a value of exchange like other metal and precious. So, I mean, let's go back to Bitcoin. Bitcoin is a currency without any backing. So, for example, they issued 2 million pieces of token and they trade, and the value has gone up. And today, most people were buying Bitcoin with the expectation that it will appreciate and they will make profit from holding Bitcoin. And that really defeats the purpose and the definitions of Bitcoin as money. So Bitcoin cannot be treated as money. If we want to treat Bitcoin as money, then it must be fully backed by asset. That's why in Islam, cryptocurrency is seen as haram, except if it has full backing of asset, and preferably gold and silver, for example. And the value of gold and silver are considered stable, so we can use this cryptocurrency as a mean of transaction, like Brother Dr. Abdullah said. But I want to go into another perspective. I mean, we now in Malaysia, they are opening up this license, 5 new license on digital bank, and we as a group we submitted one proposal to create a digital wakaf bank, and essentially we are just proposing to use e-wallet. So that we will eliminate the use of token money. We use e-wallet, and we run the bank using this e-wallet. Everybody deposit their money in their e-wallet account, and they can spend it anywhere, just with their smartphone, and they can pay and make settlement. But the important principle that we are trying to do is here to accumulate wealth of the Muslim in this system of a new bank, which will be actually accumulating deposit, salary, income of individual. Keep it there until it is being used. It will be managed by the bank to generate income, and the income can be used to help the poor under the wakaf system. So that is our visions of new money. We don't have to get into cryptocurrency yet, because that may have a technical issue. We are trying to compete against the government currency, for example.
Yeah, can I comment here?
Yeah, I was going to invite you to respond to that, actually, Mr. Abdullah. So yes, you have the floor.
Thanks for the sharing comment from Professor. I fully agree with Professor that Bitcoin cannot be used as money of our daily payment, micro payment as a money. because of I'm not trying to judge it from the economic perspective. I'm talking about from technical perspective. It's not possible to utilize Bitcoin network as a payment infrastructure for this planet. It's not possible because of there are three parts: scalability, decentralization, and security. So as a payment infrastructure, you cannot it's very hard to achieve three of them. When you are decentralized, you're secure, you're not scalable. Like some of them, like Alipay, is very scalable. It's very, but it's not decentralized. So it's very hard to manage of them. So we can consider like this way, that is, we can develop two-layer system. The first layer, we make it like as a distributed infrastructure, and it's like a highway. You understand what I'm saying? So, but this infrastructure itself is not serving as a money system. And then we can tokenize assets like commodities, like gold, or the infrastructure asset, or the other like asset. We tokenize all of them, and we utilize blockchain as an infrastructure to enable the value transfer of this tokenized asset to bring out liquidity. So we can adopt like a two-layer system. The first layer is this like distributed infrastructure where everybody can participate. And the second layer, we introduce like stablecoin, including fiat money and the payment system. So when we combine two of them together, we can cover up all the overall system. Yeah.
And I think that's a natural segue to the next question I want to put to Mr. Abdullah. Okay. About, you use the terms such as blockchain technology. Some of our listeners might be familiar with this, but also in the whole kind of field of fintech, there's a lot of advancements in fintech, and fintech and blockchain tend to play a significant role now. How do you see fintech and blockchain play a role, first of all, in the Islamic economy system, and specifically an Islamic economy system that is facing the challenges of post-pandemic recovery?
Okay, let me just make it very, very straightforward. The biggest challenges for the world financial system is cryptocurrency. All right, it's for, not only to Islamic world, but also to the United States government, but also to the Chinese government, and to the many jurisdictions around the world. Cryptocurrency is a direct challenge of all the central banks, to all the international financial institutions. So the first challenge, it comes from that Bitcoin is somehow a distributed monetary system, which means like Bitcoin is kind of a decentralized central bank. So this is the first one. Secondly, Bitcoin can play a role as a settlement infrastructure, sometimes like SWIFT system, replace part of the functions of the SWIFT system. So the U.S. government and the Chinese government adopt two different approach in terms of how to deal with cryptocurrency. All right, let me introduce the approach of the U.S. government. The U.S. government, firstly, they legalize, create a regulation system to legalize the Bitcoin, the cryptocurrency ecosystem. Firstly, like Bitcoin is treated as asset. We treat it as an asset from the government level, and also they are trying to introduce trust. Grayscale. Grayscale is already like a trust, GBTC, and also ETF, everything, to introduce like Bitcoin as an alternative asset class to the big institutions. This is the first one. Secondly, that is, they also define the Bitcoin, the public blockchain and the stablecoin as a settlement infrastructure. So similar to SWIFT system. All right. Third, in addition, that there is a stablecoin, we call it USDT and the USDC. Like they map the value of $1 to $1 like a token on the blockchain. So one USDT represent actual dollar. So because of this, it gives dollar super infiltration power. Because previously, likewise, if I want to send a dollar, I need a banking system. But right now, no. Dollar becomes more dominant. Dollar becomes much more expensive and aggressive, and it carries an infiltration value to other economies. Likewise, in Venezuela, like the US government, they provide aid to Venezuela. So when people download a wallet and they send the USDT stablecoin to that country directly without a banking system, so this makes like dollar becomes, because of network effect, it becomes more expensive, more scalable, and its value has been leveraged and harnessed or gained by the US government. This is from US. And also all the Bitcoin mining companies has been listed in the Wall Street, which means like the old money and the new money has been working together. They reconcile with each other and they become good brothers right now. And apart from that, these multinational companies like Elon Musk and Amazon and Twitter, they're trying to utilize Bitcoin. And also, by the way, and Ukraine and El Salvador and other countries has been legalized Bitcoin as a legal tender at this moment right now. So this is the approach from the US. China is totally adopted a different approach. China want to utilize blockchain to support the real economy, traceability, like ID, identification, all this kind of thing. And also China developed its own central bank digital currency, which call it DCEP. So China put their own fiat money on their blockchain, which means like previously I can say RMB, we need like a banking system. We need a corresponding banking system like a SWIFT. And we likewise China and Russia, when they want to do business, because Russia is under sanction, it has problem for the business transactions. But right now, because of blockchain, because of the currency swap, they can make this happen without a SWIFT system. So they are taking a different approach from US government and the Chinese government. And I think the biggest challenge, one of the biggest challenges for Islamic economy is about what is our approach in terms of the blockchain adoption. My approach is we should scale the infrastructure to make it ready for mainstream adoption. But on the second layer, we can develop kind of a unified cryptocurrency, a stablecoin based on asset for the Muslim economies. So we can be able to create a liquidity that it covers everyone. We can be able to create a micropayment system, a settlement infrastructure among Muslim economies. And at the same time, especially when it comes to the secondary layer adoption, we need to adopt Sharia standard. Because of the blockchain, a lot of applications are relevant to the gambling, lottery, and a lot of like harmful industry that is in conflict with the values of Islam. So we need like a proper regulation system from second layer. We can form up like a global council. We can even invite a professor to be the council member to ensure that the ecosystem will adopt Sharia standard to make sure all the applications are in line with Maqasid al-Sharia. And we want to create the convergence and synergies between different use cases. Because like Zakat and Hajj and the Waqf and the Sukuk, all these assets, they are divergent. They cannot talk to each other. But after tokenization on the blockchain, we can enable the value transfer any part to any part of the world between anyone. So that is why I believe that it's time for us to utilize public blockchain and develop various use cases in the Islamic economic ecosystem to as a new driving factors to deliver true values and make it more substantial to the ecosystem and to the Muslim Ummah.
Thank you. That's a very extensive explanation of how this would work. I am mindful of time, and I did promise the listeners today that we would allow for some time to for them to address questions to both of you. So I think we would start to.
Before that, can I also chip in on this microfinance?
I would like to just ask both speakers to perhaps wrap up a little bit, maybe final statements on what they feel before we take questions from the floor. So perhaps, Prof, you can mention what you would like, later with just general wrapping up of on the topic today. Prof, first, please.
Yeah, I want to add a little bit on this microfinance. Basically, in the olden day, this was in the 90s, they used the mechanism like the venture capital, the angels, the love money, and so on to attract capital. So we have this group of youngsters that just graduate from Stanford, created an opportunity, and then the funder will come. But then at the same time, the Muslim version is in Newfoundland. There is this Muslim community that use these versions of crowdfunding in Mutanakisa, where when one households want to buy a house, then they will announce to the neighbor who are willing to invest in the house. And so then they chip in and everybody invests in the house. And then the person will buy the house and pay rental to the neighbor who have provided the capital. So that's 30 years ago. Today, there is this mechanism called crowdfunding, using, for example, if you have an opportunity, you will make a pitching and you will project the return, the potential, and you invite investors to come. And that can be a mechanism that is very Islamic because it is based on profit sharing and so on. I went to Rwanda and observed how the farmers use microfinance. They using the fintechs. The farmers are living remote in remote area, doing normal farming, but 1 million farmers is connected through this microfinance company. That the microfinance company has all the database, detailed database of all these 1 million people, and whenever the farmer need seed funding to start their farming, so they want to buy seed, they want to buy fertilizer, and so on, they just use their handphone and request for finance. Within 3 days, it is credited into their e-wallet account, and they just go to the fertilizer shop and swipe their credit card, their smartphone, and they got the money. That is in Rwanda, and I'm sure that is something that we will appreciate well if we can introduce in our country. For example, to our micro businesses, instead of the old versions of Alung and so on. So overall, I think that Islamic finance has a role and an important role in trying to revive, to develop our economy. The issue is whether we will be given that opportunity to try and do it right. Of course, in the beginning, this can be a pilot project, experiment, but this is an important milestone to try to create a big impact on the economy. Wallahu a'lam.
Okay, thank you, Prof. And some maybe summary of thoughts, Mr. Abdullah, before we open the floor for questions.
No,
nothing. Okay. Yeah. All right. Okay. In that case, then we have a little bit of time for some questions and answers. I think if people who have questions would either you can use the chat function, or you can actually raise your hand using the reactions button. I will then invite you to unmute and speak and address your questions to Prof. Bajoyai or Mr. Abdullah. So I open the floor for any queries. It's just been me asking all the questions. I'm sure that you would also have some questions. We have
Assalamualaikum.
Mr. Effendi.
Assalamualaikum. I have a question to my Professor Emeritus Dr. Bajoyai. He's my supervisor for master thesis. Thank you, Prof, for your very wisdom words on the Revitalise economy. Prof, you had a very awesome and marvelous experiences, especially in state in USA. Can you share with us your experience in Silicon Valley? Because we noticed that you are also involved in corporate ecosystem in Silicon Valley. Actually, what differentiates them and us, Silicon Valley and Malaysia, in terms of corporate governance and economy mentality? And then
first of all, thank you, Sir Effendi. I was in Silicon Valley. I actually have an office there, and we were basically continuously searching for new technology to be listed. I managed to list 5 companies in Toronto, in Montreal, in San Francisco. Anyway, the model is very simple. Basically, they created this valley, which is the old warehouse, warehouse, and they renovate that into cubicle, and they invite young graduates to get together and think of ideas. And then there is a pitching session. They created a specific venue where every morning this young group will come and pitch their project, and every morning there will be lineup of investors that will come and listen to this pitching while sipping their coffee, and then after that this investor will approach the youngsters group and say that, okay, I commit 10%, I commit certain value. But of course they will not normally commit a majority. They just be a rider instead of leader. And what is very different in US is that at that time you can list a company without any track record. So you structure the deal and you capitalize the patent right or copyright, and that become the main asset of the company, and you then prepare that company to go for listing. And that works in the US. On the listing day, normally the share price go up 10-20 times, and then the challenge is to try and maintain the price. In Malaysia, we try to do this. We also now have this lead market, and we used to have a technology counter and so on, but it doesn't work well because the community of technology lover is not there. Many people like to listen for good pitching, but they are very skeptical of all new project without any asset backing and substance.
Then, okay, thank you. And then one more question to a simple question to my brotherhood in blockchain, with Brother Abdullah.
Okay, Mr. Andy, can you make it quite short because I've got another.
Okay, one question. Brother Abdullah, what is the impact from the China government that ban crypto? Is it will impact in the future of the crypto? The impact.
China bans crypto mining. I think the biggest winner of this one will be the mining. Mining power from North America, because of, you see, the Bitcoin network each day will mine $50 million each day. So if Chinese government bans the crypto mining and digital currency mining, which means that Chinese hash power will be suspended from the network, and each day is like 1,000 Bitcoin. So usually Chinese miners and the US miners are competing with each other. So right now, US competitors will be the biggest winner to get more Bitcoin. This is the first one. Secondly, that is a lot of like Chinese mining rigs are coming out of China. I think the worth of maybe billions of dollars asset wanted to be relocated to the area whereby that is possible, that is regulation friendly and with cheap electricity. And maybe Malaysia is also be a potential destination because Malaysia actually is number 5 mining country in the world in terms of Bitcoin. So that is the factor which might happen. Yeah.
Thank you. Some very good probing questions that I think very helpful in getting our discussion forward. I have 2 questions that have been put to me in the chat from Mr. Kam. Would you like to unmute and ask these questions? I want to give you the opportunity first. If not, I'm happy to go ahead and verbalize on your part. Maybe you can ask your questions directly, Mr. Kam.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much, Idlan. I'm going to rephrase the question I put to you since you put me live. For Professor, I mean, thank you so much. You always give us disruptive ideas and thoughts and wisdom. But the time is now for Malaysia to do things. We're sick and tired. I mean, I'm sick and tired of discussing these things and never seeing anything happening much. So can we start yesterday? I mean, technically, what can we do? At least if we can't do 100%, at least 5%, 10%. Didn't Stanford and Silicon Valley also work like that? They failed many times and then they found that one time. But in Malaysia, we seem to, because we think it's going to fail or high risk, we don't even embark on it. So I would like your views on that. I mean, I think many of the elements that you said are already here. It's just putting it together. For Saudara Abdullah Han, thank you so much. My first time listening to you, very enlightening. My point to you is, it's very clear from your perspective that we can't stay out of this new technology of cryptocurrency, blockchain. The question is, because the pursuit is very Wall Street in nature, in that sense, more for profit and speculation, how would the people on the East, like Islamic or otherwise, if we want to use it for social good, would that be a good kicking off point to finally put things in perspective? Do not wait for the global architecture. Do not wait for countries' architecture. NGOs, cooperative, wakaf, whatever, just get together, start it first. Okay, thank you so much. That's all from me.
I just muted myself. Apologies. Maybe, Prof, you can address Mr. Kam's first question.
Okay.
I invite you.
All right. Thank you, Cik Kamal. On this mechanism, I think we have to start somewhere. And I'm glad that, for example, yesterday Equinas announced that they allocated 30 million that they will venture into the small business, micro businesses. And that can be a good start. I mean, Equinas can be an institution that will lead this to guide others investors to bring the confidence to other investors to ride along. And we should first let Equinas start, and then along the way we'll improve that, and we structure and we relate that with the stock exchange, because in the end there must be an exit point, and investors must see some potential. I'll give you an example. There is a Malaysian group that created this durian investment. So they are selling durian trees. So you invest in durian tree, you pay 5,000 ringgit for a durian tree, and then from the 6 years till the 30 years, you will get 2,000 ringgit profit a year, and that's 10 times profit over 30 years. And you can structure, if you have 10,000 acres, you can have 36,000. 10,000 acres means you have over 50,000 trees that you can actually sell in terms of investment, and that can be an interesting thing, because that relates to our physical economy, and that can be seen. At least if you don't get the money later, you'll get the durian, for example. And but to me, the microfinance, how we should help the micro businesses should come first, and that should be immediately structured using how they do it in Rwanda just now. All we need to do is to have a database of all the micro business in Malaysia, maybe 1 million of them, and really have a detail of their structure, their business, their revenue, their profit, their asset, and so on. And based on that, we can just give loan on a free base at any time without having to assess them, evaluate them. And already they are talking about approving loan within minutes in Malaysian bank, the foreign bank. So we should be following that route soon.
Thank you, Prof. Prof has mentioned durian. I think I need to bring this to the UK because durian is very expensive here.
Right.
And I miss it a lot. So maybe this is something I can pitch to some investors here as well. Sorry, moving away. Prof mentioned durian, and I'm already thinking of food. Mr. Abdullah, your thoughts not on durian, but on the question that was put forward by Cik Kam.
Okay, Mr. Haran. So thanks for the question. You see, I'm fully aware about that cryptocurrency has a lot of controversial argument globally, not only in the Muslim world, but also in China. The economists, the government advisors, the central bankers, and everyone issue different policies about cryptocurrency. And in US, it's the same thing. From SEC, from Wall Street, everybody's come out with a lot of let me say, question and argument about it. But from my point of view, that is, I want to utilize is deeply rooted Islamic values to guide public blockchain adoption. So, and also I'm an entrepreneur, so and I want to do this one first, and then we optimize it according to the development of our ecosystem, according to the advance of our project. So in this project, I have been I raised money from public. I injected investing in this project particular already $10 million. So this project is ready right now. We developed it for 4 years, and so we are about to launch it before the end of this month. So by October, it will be fully functional. It will be the first public blockchain according to the Islamic economy. And during the Genesis block, we write La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah in the first block. Yeah. So it's kind of innovation from our system. We want to but we don't state ourselves as Islamic public blockchain, but we stick to the values, to the essence, to the core element of our infrastructure. And from second layer, we have like a governance council, because like Ethereum, there's no governance council. Any applications can utilize it. I'm a gambling, I issue a token for the casino. I can utilize it for Ethereum. I can utilize it for Solana. But in Kitamir, no. It only has to be the business that is useful, that is beneficiary to our society. So if it is gallery, like a casino or like lottery, this kind of applications will not have a chance from our ecosystem. So that is why we are trying to utilize two compliance. One is utilize Sharia values to improve the governance and the compliance of the ecosystem. And also from the second layer, if you want to utilize stablecoin, you need to have a license from the regulator, maybe from Malaysia, maybe from Central Bank of Bahrain, from elsewhere. So we are trying to compromise between centralization and decentralization. From the first layer, as a distributed infrastructure, we make it decentralized because everyone can participate. I can use my computer from Malaysia to participate, to contribute a node. I can from China, from US, from any part of this world. We need to have this inclusiveness as a distributed infrastructure because of its proof of work. From second layer, when it comes to the real application, you need to be licensed both from the regulator and also according to Sharia standards. We can involve Sharia scholars to advise us. Yeah.
Thank you, Abdullah. Are there any further questions from the floor? Can raise your hand or something in the chat so that we can address it to the speakers. So I'm going to give a bit of time maybe for people to...
Can I say something?
Oh yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Yeah, because I believe everybody is newly in crypto. So actually, I just there in the chat box, I give I type, this is a wallet, it's a blockchain-based wallet which can receive cryptocurrencies from anyone. So I advise everyone to download this wallet. I will airdrop some cryptocurrencies into this wallet. So you will be the first guy to hold a cryptocurrency and to let you feel how it works. Because basically, with the wallet, with a stablecoin, and with cryptocurrency, we don't need a bank because we can send money to any part of the world. Because likewise, right now, I will show you. Okay. So this is like, sorry, you cannot see from here. This is a blockchain wallet, which they have all the transactions. It can be verified by anyone from Explore. So this will make the whole transaction very transparent and efficient, and we can send the money any part of the world without a banking system. That is the most beautiful part of blockchain.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Abdullah, for introducing us to that. Maybe attendees can check it out and see how that works. Are there any further questions before we finish for today? We're just approaching past, which is just nice, actually. Okay, if there are no further questions, then allow me to just kind of thank our esteemed speakers, Mr. Abdullah and Professor Bajoriai. I guess what we can say about moving forward with the global economy, the Malaysian economy, is as we try to come out of this pandemic globally, is that we need to be brave. We need to be brave and reimagine what things can do, but also make sure that what we reimagine is taken to action. It's not just something that we kind of we can discuss about this all day long, but if there are no real attempts to actually make this happen, then there is really no movement in the way that things are going to happen in the future. So it's very important not to just reimagine the way that we think, but also think about the way that our thoughts can become actions, and those actions can hopefully help the Malaysian economy and the global economy to recover. Even if we aren't able to do this on a global scale, a small scale, one step at a time would actually be very useful because collectively, inshallah, we will be able to achieve something if we keep at it. Okay, I'm going to call the session to a close. I think it's almost lunchtime, your time in Malaysia, 12:30, and almost back to bedtime for me. It's almost subuh prayers time here. So thank you everybody for attending and presenting your questions and asking your questions for today's discussion. Thank you to Noor Conference for inviting me to moderate this very, very illuminating talk. My time, it's actually when we started, was actually about 4 o'clock in the morning, and if it wasn't anything of interest or anything that I thought was important, I would have not woken up. This is definitely worth the very, very pertinent and important points that we picked up today. I wish you the best for the rest of the day and to enjoy the 2 more, I believe, parallel sessions this afternoon before we have a closing kind of remarks from Sheikh Afifi from Oxford. So inshallah, I hope everything goes well. Do we have any members of the organizers who would like to say anything before we close? Cik Fazril, if there's nothing, then I will close the room, I guess, or leave the room. There's no further closing remarks from the organizing committee, yeah?
No, just...
Yes, please.
Just a reminder for all of the participants to just enter our Zoom session at 2 o'clock, 2 p.m.
Okay, so we will start again at 2 p.m. inshallah, and I wish you at least a good lunch, except for I think Cik Kam is also at subuh time for him as well. So okay, thank you very much everybody, and Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Terima kasih.
Terima kasih. Thank you.
Terima kasih.
Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam. Terima kasih.